Okay, the Furnival Carnival is back in town, and here's our master of ceremonies, Paige.
Oh, awesome. Thank you so much. I'm Paige F, an alcoholic. So grateful to be here. And every time I just love that. All right. So and it's really is quite fitting because we know like it is my circus, it is my monkeys. I am the problem, but it took me some inventory to be able to get there. All righty. So where we're picking up today is on page 82, and we are at paragraph 2. I was able to count them. And some would be like, that's the wrong one. But it's paragraph 2, if we have no such complication. That's where we're picking up today. And so when it says, if we have no such complication, well, we spent the last 4 weeks diving into what do we do about infidelity, which as we found out, oh boy, that was complicated. It was a little like dicey. And some of us are like, whew, thank goodness we got no complication. Oh, it's wonderful to hear that there's not a whole lot I have to do. There is plenty we should do at home. Oh man, not cool. I was hoping I could like coast, rest on my laurels. No, unfortunately, we decided that this chapter is called Into Action and it's requiring some action, which I mean, they didn't get my consent for this. Oh, wait, they did in the third step when I agreed that I was going to go to any lengths. Darn, they got me again. All right, so there is still plenty I should do at home. So there is action that I am going to need to take to make this amends, to set right this wrong, to restore the damage done. It goes on to say, sometimes we hear an alcoholic say that the only thing he needs to do is to keep sober. Now, we don't have to do a show of hands, but I can tell you, I've heard that in the rooms. The only amends that I need to make is to stay sober. My sobriety is amends enough. It's going to tell us, I don't want to spoil it, but it's going to say, It goes on to say, certainly, he must keep sober, for there will be no home if he doesn't. But he is yet a long way from making good to the wife or parents for whom for years he is so shockingly treated. And this is an important idea. This is an important line in the book. First and foremost, what I can glean from this is sobriety is not an amends. But let's go a step deeper. Just for those that are possibly new or coming to the study for the first time or having a look at the first step. I'm going to take it through that lens because Howard gave me 24 minutes. And actually, that is the first time it feels like it was an honest clock. I mean, you gave me the clock right away. He's like, 5 weeks, Howard. It's more than enough. We got to wrap this up. We'll keep her on time. But to dive a little bit deeper for those that are new, sobriety is not a solution for my alcoholism. And that might feel like a radical idea. Because how often did I think, I just need to get sober, I just need to get sober, I just need to stay sober. And the first reason I have to get sober, the reason I need to stay sober, what necessitates my sobriety is the allergy of the body. That once I start to drink, I have that thing inside of me, that switch that flips that tells me more. And the more that I drink, the louder that more gets. You guys know what I'm saying. I take a drink and it demands a second. My second drink insists on 4. That fourth drink will not relent until I've had 8. Eighth drink screaming at me till I've had 16. You guys know it's like, sweetie, I'm going to go to the pub. I'm going to have 3 drinks. And we're gone for 3 days and I don't know where my pants are, maybe just me. And if you're like, who invited her? Again, this is your final reminder that was Kathy invite, Howard approved. So that is who you need to take that up with in your 4-column inventory. So, and I do hear that they will take complaints via carrier pigeon. Actually, that's just me. I like birds. I don't think Howard would like a bunch of birds being like, why'd you get Paige showing up at his house? That might be a little much. All right. But here's the thing. The allergy of the body necessitates that I stay sober because I cannot control the amount that I drink. But here's the thing. Every single time I have taken that first drink, every single time I have relapsed, I have done so from the position of stone cold sobriety. Sobriety is not a solution to my alcoholism. You see, it is when I am sober that I have the obsession of the mind. It is when I am sober and my illness is untreated that I have a thought that takes me back again and again and again to the first drink, despite the fact that it is ruining my life. And when I can see those two things, I can see that I have the allergy of the body, which means that I can never ever drink again. But I also have the obsession of the mind, which means that if my illness is untreated, I will drink again. What I begin to see is that sobriety is not enough. Sobriety is not a solution. And as we go through the work, as we go through these steps, we awaken to the reality that nothing less than a spiritual awakening that I grow, that I deepen for the rest of my life is going to work for somebody like me. I don't know what's going to work for you, but this little drunky pants, I was going to say drunky poo, but that feels too close to a swear word. But this little drunky pants, like I gotta keep doing this thing. And so sobriety is not a solution for my alcoholism. Now, when we look at what does the word amend mean? Amend. And now I have a feeling Rob's like, I'm going to get the dictionary definition and pop it in the chat right now. That's what that face looks like. But the word amend means whatever Rob puts in the chat, but then also to repair and to restore and to make right. And what we're going to see is that if all I do is I stop drinking, I've not repaired, I've not restored, and I have not made right. All I have done is I have stopped causing the damage. For example, let's say, actually, I'm really leaning into the bird thing. Let's say I encourage people to send notes to Howard via carrier pigeon. And he's like, I thought I got away from New York, all the pigeons. And all these birds show up to his house. If all I do is I stop sending the birds, that hasn't done anything about the birds that are currently there. You know what I'm saying? If what I do is I can't stop breaking somebody's windows, and I break your 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 windows, but I finally stop breaking your windows, that is great. That is bare minimum behavior. Me showing up with with like a hammer and birds. Whee! I'm just having a Tuesday afternoon. Look at me. But I have not actually repaired the harm caused. I've not relocated the birds to a safe, equitable habitat, nor have I repaired his broken windows. And so sobriety is a baseline minimum, but sobriety is not an amends. And it says, passing all understanding is the patience that mothers and wives have had with us alcoholics. I mean, it is the people that loved us the most. In the next paragraph, we're going to talk about how the alcoholic is like a tornado. And who gets hurt in a tornado? Well, it is those who are closest to the eye of the storm, where the wind is blowing the strongest. Now, if you are like Paige, I study the weather, and that's not how tornadoes work. That's fine. I haven't looked it up. You're right. I'm wrong for surezies. But in this spiritual metaphor, it is those that I am closest to that are hurt the most. And how often am I the type of person to come into Alcoholics Anonymous and say the only person I was hurting was myself? But every time I destroyed my life, every time I ended up in the hospital, every time I put myself in danger, those that loved me were on the sidelines watching helplessly as I burnt the fabric of my life to ashes again and again and again. And to know an alcoholic is to be burnt by the flames of alcoholism. And as close as I am to the flames, the more and more as I get engulfed in the pain and the suffering that is the inferno of alcoholism. And so me just putting out the fire does nothing to treat the burns. And it says, had this not been so, many of us would have no homes today, would perhaps be dead. How often was I kept alive by the loving enabling of those in my life? You know, the people that gave me money or a place to crash, or, you know, like, oh man, I take people's patience and I test that thing real thin on my own power. And so I've got to do more than stop hurting them. I've got to repair, to restore, to make right that relationship. Me being sober is a starting place, but it is imperative that I acknowledge the harms that I have caused. It is imperative that I acknowledge what I've done. And it's one of those things. I'm off on a little tangent, which I know is a surprise to everyone. Paige on a tangent? We thought she would have flown far on that tangent with the birds. Uh, but but that idea that like I've not harmed anyone else. The only person that I've harmed is myself. And I would come to AA, and I'd be like, I'm not a thief. And I'll be honest with you guys, it is a really weird thing that I don't shoplift. Like, I don't have any amends for shoplifting. And I want you to know, some of you are like, what? Some of you, that's weird. It's weird that if you sponsor, I mean, how are you giving me a look? Are you judging me for not shoplifting? Or are you judging me for the acknowledgement that, like, everybody seems to shoplift, especially after, spoilers, especially after they get sober. For some reason, we put down the bottle and the fingers get a little sticky. But I had a weird sort of like internal thing where I was not a shoplifter. And so I didn't have a lot of stealing in that way. Now, of course, would I steal from family? Absolutely. When my boyfriend would pass out, would I steal what he was drinking and some of the non-conference approved dry goods he had left in his pocket? Oh, you betcha I'd be stealing that, but I wasn't doing a lot of shoplifting. And I would show up with, believe me, I don't got no moral authority or superiority, but I would show up and be like, I am not a thief. I never stole. I mean, other than those examples that I just gave you of when I did for sureties. But I am not a thief. But I love you too. But you know what I did steal? I stole peace of mind. I stole nights of sleep. I stole, that freedom from embarrassment. I stole that sense of peace and ease that the loved ones that I had in my life had. I stole from them a sense of security. Man, I think about this. I remember this night. I can't remember. I think, oh gosh. I'm just like, I'm a monster. Kathy's like, you're an angel. I'm like, well, let me tell you this story. I was like, yikes. I was like 18 years old, in and around 17, 18. I think I was at 18 at this point. And what I was doing was I was living on the streets of Calgary because things were going well. I was thriving. And if you're wondering, do good things happen when you're an 18-year-old girl, 17, 18-year-old girl, homeless, living on the streets of Calgary? Absolutely not. And guess who had a vision that might not be a good course of action for me to take? My freaking mom. My poor freaking mom. There were times she would drive to downtown Calgary to try to find me. And she was like, I don't care what's going on. Just come home. Just come home. And there are times I said, no, I'm not coming home. You can't make me. And I remember this one night, I went home and she tried to stay up because I wanted to go drink and I wanted to go do some other things. And she tried to stay up all night with me so I couldn't leave. And as soon as she fell asleep, I was gone. But I'm not a thief. But I stole something that's more valuable than the $13 mascara that for some reason, like every girl is shoplifting. Do you know what I mean? I stole from her that peace. I stole from her that night's sleep. I stole. And you see, when it comes to like, I've not hurt anyone, man, again, man, this was not a tangent I expected to go on. And I definitely got to get to the next paragraph. But I remember there was a time I was homeless, living on the streets of Calgary. Also, being homeless does not make me an alcoholic. I just want to emphasize that, because if you're here today and you're like, I'm not like Paige, fair, I'm really weird. You're soaring high. I'm a little weirdo over here. But what makes me an alcoholic is the allergy of the body and the obsession of the mind. Everything else is just story and geographics. It's just location. And we know where my location was, behind the dumpster. like a lady with my pinkies up. Some of you know. All right. But I remember this one time, and there was this underpass that I would that was my place. That was my underpass. Uh, and it was a pedestrian underpass, and I remember one morning I was sitting in the sun because I was trying to warm up because it's cold in Canada, and there was and panhandling. Listen, I was great at bottle picking. I was really good. I'm really good at going through garbage, which maybe explains my proclivity towards inventory. Let me tell you, that behooves me. I want to sort out the garbage in myself. But also I would panhandle. And I was good at that because there's something about me that's naturally quite depressive and sad. I would just show up pitiful. But I was sitting out there and I was panhandling and trying to warm up in the sun. And there was a woman who came up, and I didn't know who she was. And she told me I hadn't seen, like, hey, I hadn't seen you in a few weeks, and I was really worried about you. Now, this was a stranger who would see me on her way, walking to and from work as I was sitting panhandling in the underpass. And she was worried about me. Man, but my alcoholism, that only hurt me. That only affected me. Man, I don't know the ripple effect that my illness can have. And if the world were to write my 8-step list, how different it might be. Now, by that same token, I don't know the effects that my recovery can have. I won't tell the whole story because I don't think I have time for it. And it's funny, I normally talk about this in the doctor's opinion. But there was one time I was going to a speaker meeting. I had a sponsee that was celebrating a birthday, an anniversary, whatever you call it, wherever you are in the world. And on the way there, I see a gentleman who had, when you can kind of tell somebody had that cartoon where they like fall straight back. Like there was a guy passed out, falls straight back, and I was like, we're gonna have to deal with that. And so we go, and I try to like not resuscitate him, but I try to like, because he was unconscious, but he was breathing, and I'm like, I couldn't kind of get him to like, hey, I'm okay. And so we ended up calling an ambulance for him, and the paramedics come, fire truck comes, and they're like, you can go. And I'm like, cool, go to the meeting. We come back, he was still there. They left him there. And I'm like, oh, you guys. And so I go, and I'm like, say, okay, how can I be still more helpful? And he introduced himself, and I was like, oh, and my name's Paige. It's lovely to meet you. And he's like, oh, no, I know you, Paige, from the AA meetings, you know? And it's one of those, like, I do not know the impact that my sobriety can have. I don't know who's watching. But if all I'm doing is staying sober, I'm missing the point. There is growth. There is restoration. You know what I mean? Like with somebody like that, if he wanted, and he had a brief window where we got him a ride to detox if he wanted it in the morning. He in the moment he wanted it, but his window closed. He didn't end up taking it. But that ability, if somebody needs my help, that I can offer this profound way of life to those who need it most, that is my responsibility to those that are hurting, to those that are struggling. And man, for those that are out there, I owe it to them to make my amends so that I can show them how they can make theirs. This is not about me. My life is not about me. It's none of my business. Because if it was my business, you know what I wouldn't be doing? Amends. Ugh, gross, yucky, scary, no thank you. Right? Yeah, let's be real. Right? My life is none of my business. It goes on to say, the alcoholic is like a tornado roaring his way through the lives of others. You see, my alcoholism cuts through the world indiscriminately. I do not know the people that I will hurt with my illness. I do not know the full extent of the damage that I will cause. And again, it is those who are the closest to me that are the most affected by my illness. And it's kind of like I'm in the eye of the storm, and I'm thinking, it's not that bad. It's manageable. What are you guys on with me about? Yeah, like I remember. Oh man, so I'm having memories. I don't always get that many of them. I remember because I used to play rugby. I remember some of the people I played rugby with. They had an intervention, and if you know anything about the sport of rugby, it's a bit of a drinking game. Like not as much as curling, but like at the end of the year, they have what's called a kangaroo court where you give like different awards. And there was a legitimate trophy for somebody who drank the most and had the biggest like drunk shenanigans. You know who did not win that? Me. You know why? Because it wasn't funny. It was scary. You know where my alcoholism was going. They were not going to be like, oh, it's Paige. It's like, oh my gosh, why are you living? What are you doing? Like, I was self-destructing before their eyes, and I could not see it as a big deal. They were like, what are you doing? And I'm like, it's like camping, but urban. I'm not kidding. I literally told that to somebody when they're like, what are you doing? It's like urban camping. Just absolutely unable to see it. And they gave me an intervention, and I'm like, I'm not really interested in doing any inpatient sort of treatment. I was homeless, living on the streets of Calgary. Winter is fast approaching. I don't want to do inpatient. I cannot see the winds that are blowing, but the destruction is evident if I can just get out of self a little bit. And so the alcoholic is like a tornado roaring his way through the lives of others. Hearts are broken. And here's the thing. I broke those hearts. I broke those hearts. Sweet relationships are dead. I'm the one who killed those relationships. Affections have been uprooted. It is me. It is me who took the affections of those that I loved and pulled them out of the ground. It was me. Selfish and inconsiderate habits have left the home in turmoil. It is my selfish and my inconsiderate habits, not theirs, although I'm busy looking at theirs, mine, that kept the home in turmoil. That's what I did. That's how I affected others. It was my behavior. But ain't it grand the wind stopped blowing? And we'll talk about that here in a moment. It says we feel a man is unthinking when he says sobriety is enough. Sobriety is not a solution to alcoholism. Sobriety is not an amends. Sobriety is not repairing the broken hearts. Sobriety is not replenishing those relationships, reviving those relationships. It is not replanting those affections. And it is not a change of my habits and behaviors. That's not what sobriety is. So what do I need to do? I need to go and do that, repair those relationships, restore those hearts, rebuild that trust, change how I show up, and plant these seeds of affection, demonstrate more than just sobriety, demonstrate the change. And how I do that is in a direct amends and continuing on with that direct amends with the promise that I made in the amends. Because, by the way, more often than not, spoilers, you make an amends to mom. Moms are just, they're good. Oh, no, you don't, you're just happy yourself, right? Just keep doing what you're doing. But when I am told in an amends, keep doing what I am doing. What that means is that I've got to continue this way of life. That is a promise, a commitment that I made, not only in the third step, but a commitment that I made to that person in the amends process. You see, this book, what it does is it meets me where I'm at and takes me where I need to go. Because we've all had that experience. No, sobriety is enough. I don't really need to make that amends. It's not a big deal. But I am unthinking if I don't go and make that amends. I've got to make it right. Now, here's where we start talking about the cows. It says he is like the farmer who comes up out of his cyclone cellar to find his home ruined. To his wife he remarked, "Don't see anything the matter here, Ma. Ain't it grand the wind stopped blowing? Ain't it grand the wind stopped blowing?" Now, here's the reality of the predicament. If all I have done is put down the drink, I've stopped the wind. But if all I do is I put down the drink and I don't take any further action, I am living in the rubble of my life, and it's going to get windy again. That tornado is going to pick up again. It will happen again. And so I put down the drink and I come out of the cyclone cellar. And I see that, and hold on, I'll do this because I did this. Oh no, the cows. Oh. I was left unsupervised. We were joking about the cows earlier, and like here's the thing: I really love cows. So in this metaphor in my mind, no cows were harmed in the making of the metaphor. You know, the cow's in a tree, but we're gonna get them down. It's gonna be okay because no, I can't handle if the cow's not okay. But we got the barn is leveled to the ground. We have the grain silo that's tipped right over. You know, the grain spilling out. We got everything. The tractor's like the tractor's the next farm over. You know what I mean? Everything is damaged and broken. And all I can say is, isn't it great? Isn't it great the wind stopped blowing? Isn't that wonderful? And that is not an amend. In the next paragraph, which I'm going to leave for the normal person who does this normally, next month will be very normal. But it says that there is a long period of reconstruction ahead, and we must take the lead to rebuild from the damage that I've caused. It is going to take a long time. Of course, I make the amends, and I make that direct amends. But it is going to take time to rebuild those structures. On page 21, and I won't bounce us there because I got 4 minutes, although Howard sometimes gives me a little extra time. Sorry. I mean, nothing happened. But on page 21, it talks about how the real alcoholic will build up the structures and then tear them back down after a senseless series of sprees. What I need to do is I need to repair the damage that I've caused. I need to get the cow safely and gently out of the tree unharmed. I need to go get the tractor back. I need to get the grain silo up. I need to rebuild the barn. I need to put those structures back together. And it might take time, but more important than time, it takes consistency. Consistency with my action, consistency with demonstrating these 12 steps as a way of life. It takes consistency. Not just time. You know, it's that idea of like, if we've been sober a while, that doesn't always demonstrate the change. I've got to have the change and demonstrate the change and show up in a radical new way. And in fact, that's often what some of the later chapters, in fact, second half of Two Wives is about how if I take the instructions and I apply it to myself, I'm the one that's reading the book. I am the one who it applies to. I take what is applied in the second half of Two Wives. I begin to see how I can demonstrate the change, how I can practice these 12 steps in all areas of my life, especially with my family. Now, here's the thing. I live in Calgary, Alberta. It is the traditional lands of the Blackfoot people. Actually, the place that I live was called Mohkinstsis. That's just a little fun fact. Blackfoot language lesson of the day. Is it poorly pronounced? Yep, because I said it. And listen, when I have that big book study where they give me a word of the day, it's in a language that I technically speak, and I butcher that all the time. But it's the traditional lands of the Blackfoot people. And we are in the foothills. For those of you that are like, yeah, I don't know where that is. We're in the foothills of the Rocky Mountains. We're in the plains of North America. And on those plains is the lands of the buffalo. And when I was in, I believe it was in elementary school, there was a Blackfoot elder that came and spoke to us. And that Blackfoot elder told us the story, the legend of the buffalo. You see? There's the thing is these stories, like that's what we have as our stories. We don't remember facts and information, but we retain and we remember a story. And our stories in Alcoholics Anonymous are meant to convey lessons which convey meaning. And that is the history of Alcoholics Anonymous. It's a parable. So where I live, it's not Tornado Alley, although we can technically get them. But we live where you get those storms in the prairies. We're coming into July. We'll have our 3 a.m. or 3 p.m. hail showers. We just get like hail because we get a lot of hail. And when a storm comes in, the animals of the prairie, the bunnies, we have gazelles, the deer, what they do is they see that storm and they want to run the other way. And isn't that what I naturally want to do as an alcoholic? I see the storm of my amends and I'm like, I would like to gazelle away out of here. We don't have ostriches, but I would like to put my head in the sand. Ostriches did never really do that. But again, parable, I don't want amends. No, thank you. No, what to? Yikes. No, I'm good. Right? And you see what happens is as they try to outrun the storm, it prolongs the storm because the storm is coming, whether they want it to or not. And the longer I try to outrun it, the more I'm stuck in the storm. Well, on the plains, we have the buffalo. And if you don't know what a buffalo looks like, they look like a cow. They're a similar animal type. They don't have top teeth. That's a fun fact about cows and buffalo. They don't have top teeth. You don't, Howard's like, I gave her extra time for this. I'm sorry, I'm trying to land the plane. Oh gosh, I know. But it's an animal like a cow, but on it's got this long, shaggy, thick fur on its head, its face, and its shoulders, and thinner on its rump. Good to see you. And what happens? You see, when a storm comes in, what do the buffalo do? Well, what they do is they turn and they face the storm. And what they do is they walk into the storm. And in so doing, they cut the storm in half. And I won't be here to talk about it, but when it talks about the 9-step promises on the bottom of page 83, it says if we are painstaking about this phase of our development, this phase of our development being step 9. And step 9, amends. If I am diligent in my amends, I will be amazed before I am halfway through. So when does the storm begin to dissipate? Before I am halfway through. If I am going after those amends, just like the buffalo walking through the storm. But here's the thing. What's the difference between me and the buffalo? The difference between me and the buffalo is I am also the storm. I am also the storm. And I have a duty, a responsibility to face the harms that I've caused and to do the best that I can to make it right. But if I do that, what I experience is freedom. That beautiful, that rainbow, that sun, that, after the storm, that's what we get to experience. This is so much more than just not drinking, that I'm sober just for today. There is real freedom beyond anything we could not have ever imagined. And if you have not experienced that yet, what I want you to know is it does not take long to get well. It does not take long to repair the damage. It does not take long to have a spiritual awakening. And our very lives depend on helping you. So please, let us help you. Thank you for the opportunity to share and for the extra time.
Great. Thank you. Hang on. Let me turn this off.